Um, you know, I do ask myself that question sometimes too, because at one time I said, you know, I would never get into this kind of field of politics and that kind of thing. But I think I have been in social services. I am in social services still. I am a person that wants to make a difference in people's lives. And I really think this is a way of making a difference in a larger way on people's lives. So, you know, you have many issues in the city that really need to be faced and confronted. I have the education, I have the experience, but I think I can give you a good balanced approach to things. You know, we don't want to go all the way to the environmentalist and shut down the port. I think we need to find a good medium in there. It's a great resource that we have here. Um, we need to take advantage of it, and I think we just need to make sure, put in place things that we do it safely, that we safeguard the environment. So, you know, those are some of the things. I mean, I know we have a problem of homelessness. My feeling on that is that we really are not making any impact on that. We are spending a lot of money. We are moving them from one place to another. But do we have an end game where we can provide some permanent housing for some of these folks? I don't think we do. And I think this is a process that needs to begin slowly, slowly. And we probably, you know, because that number is only going to increase rather than decrease. So we don't have, I don't think local government has a solution for that, a permanent solution. We are spending a lot of law enforcement. We spend a lot of money in health. But, you know, we're not driving, we don't have a strategy for a permanent kind of solution. You know, we're still spending a lot of money, but what are we going to do with that? So, I mean, I think the goal is this guys giving permanent housing someplace, and you know, make them productive citizens, and hopefully maybe start paying taxes at some point in their life. Because I think many of them need an opportunity. Many of them are, you know, do have problems, whether you know, with substances, with whether mentally, but we have those places too, you know, to send them to be recovered. So, you know, I really think my message to you guys is really, I know we have some candidates that have some ties to local government. And my message to you is, okay, you like the status quo? You want things the way they are? Vote for them. Keep going. It's not going to take us anywhere, because I think so far where we are, you know, we keep piling onto the property taxes. And I really think that that's really a much lack of creativity in the part of local government. I mean, that's the easy target. That's the thing that you have in front of you. But I think there's a limit to that. And I think while the the property owners have been generous and willing to say, well, yeah, we'll pay a little more for this or for that, for the transportation or whatever it is. But I think there is a limit. I think government needs to be a little bit more creative in terms of looking at other things before we look at property taxes. Property taxes should be the last resort that we do, because, you know, we have a lot of people in fixed incomes right in this community that, you know, bought their properties many years ago. They were maybe 100, 200,000. Now they are $600,000, $700,000. That, you know. I think another one of the issues among this homeless population that I am concerned, and that I really want to, I'm kind of on a mission to see what we can do, is really the elderly. You know, currently I think we have almost close to 7,000 in the waiting list for housing. You know, we trust the figures that they give us, probably close to 1,000 people out there homeless. And I think when we were counting the homeless, the number that they gave us, there were just people that were out there. They were not counting the people that were in the shelters. They were not counting the people that were in transitional housing. if you put all those numbers together, that is a much larger number than we are made to believe. So, you know, you got a lot of senior citizens out there, males and females, that have run into some kind of problem, whether it be a health problem or something else, but they are out there. You know, you have some in houses that, in order to pay the mortgage and the taxes, we cannot buy all the food that we would like to have. So that's the population that I think they predict that it's going to double here in about 10 years. We already have a backup in there, a big problem there, and what are we doing? I mean, I think we need, along with the housing, I know we have a levy, and this is a wonderful thing about the city, you know, that it's been really generous and has planned in the past, but I don't think we have been able to keep up with that. And I think that was one of the proposals. I think the mayor said that he wanted to double the levy that we have for low-income housing or affordable housing. And there's also a levy for housing for senior citizens too. And that also needs to be updated. I mean, I remember reading an article here in the newspaper that, you know, where they were talking about affordable housing in other the surrounding communities to Seattle. I think it was Redmond or one of those places, and they're doing much worse than we are here. And some levies and some monies that they are able to that they have been able to get, then I get it. They are continuing to get them, but they haven't been increased those funds. And I think I remember there was a comment from the mayor from Bellevue. Well, you know, they haven't asked for more, so that's probably why we're not giving them more. So, you know, those kinds of things. When you hear those kinds of things, and you got people struggling out there to find housing. I mean, like the mayor said, I think I very much agree with his view that if you work in Seattle, you know, you should be able to live in Seattle. You got a lot of workers coming from Federal Way, from Kent, from other parts of the city. You know, that's adding to the congestion, that is adding to the problem, that is adding pollution, that is getting all those things out there. So, you know, I think, as I said, you know, if people really likes what we're getting, I say vote for my opponent, because I don't think you're going to see much of a change. I think some of them have been part of government for some time, and we got what we got. But I think if you know, this is a big change. This is a big change when you go to election by district. And if you're going to give me more of the same, come on, we failed on that attempt. Because, I mean, you know, West Seattle, I think they talk about being a really diverse community. You got the Asian community, the Hispanics. I think this one actually has one of the highest number of Hispanics. I think it's something like 10%. Compared to the rest of the city, which is like 7 or 9%, somewhere in there. So I think we want that kind of diversity coming to government. Otherwise, I think we have failed.
Just real quick, speaking of communities, correct me if I'm wrong, you're a South Park resident.
I am not. I live here in High Point.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Then that was my bad.
Yeah, I mean, no, I you know, we have a project there. I mean, the agency, Consejo Counseling, that I work for, we do have a center there that works mainly with some of the youth there. So we're close to it, but I don't live there.
But okay, so we're on the subject of South Park, and you have interaction with it. The bridge was obviously a very, very dominant topic for a long time. The cleanup goes on. But as someone who actually has interaction with that neighborhood, what are one or two issues about South Park that you're not hearing that have come out of all these forums and some of these other things that you've been to?
Well, you know, I mean, I think when you go sort of Main Street there, 14th, Cloverdale Street, you see a lot of decay, you know. You see a lot of buildings that been there for a long time, decaying. We're trying to put them to use in something. But I mean, I think, you know, my disappointment there was I'm not even seeing a Starbucks in there. You know, we should at least have Starbucks in there. You know, we talk about ghettos in the cities, and we think that they just happen by accident. But they say it's been the outcome of policy from local government. The reason the way they are, and I really believe that South Park, it has been a conscious policy to keep it where it is and to stay where it is, undeveloped. You know, the housing is not that great. You know, all kinds of problems with pollution. I know they've been clamoring for a precinct there, police precinct, so that they can have a little bit more. There's a lot of, you know, we talked about that, crime, property, etc., etc. But really, I don't think the city has responded to that. I was at the community center, a beautiful facility that they have there. I was there like, I think, 8 o'clock, 8:30, 9 o'clock. But they said, you know, they don't open until 1 o'clock. You know, wonderful facility that I think is being underutilized. So, you know, I know Seymour has a large presence in that community and a lot of really nice facilities there. They have developed a lot of clinics, and they have sort of like a nursing home up on the hill in that area, and they develop a nice housing project up there that you can see that it's a good quality housing. But, you know, those are the efforts of, you know, private not-for-profit agency that has done that. I am surprised I haven't been more of a force locally to bring some development, some business in there. I mean, the last time that I was there, and I don't think we have talked about this to answer your question, I seen like, and some of the people said, you know, we got a lot of this marijuana shops, pot shops coming in, moving in here. We already have one here and another one there, and I think we got 2 more that have moved over there. And that's the kind of thing when you see that kind of lack of development, lack of care. I mean, you walk on 14th Street there, and it's, you know, you see we put some trees there and that kind of thing, but it's not cared for. It's not clean. The sidewalks are not clean. It could be a lot nicer to, I mean, I see a lot of bikers going there, back and forth. We can make that a much nicer community, and I think we can care for that a lot more, and I think we can consciously give some incentives for some development to take place in that community. You know, I think one of the things that you have a lot of industrial parts, and then the, you know, the community, the residential part of it begins right after that, and it's not really big division there between one and the other. So, you know, I'm pretty sure that's contributed to some of the pollution there. But I believe, you know, there's a community that is, I believe, 30% Latinos, Hispanics. It's a majority. And granted, probably many of them, you know, we might not be being here legally. You know, maybe we don't have the papers to be here, that they're much less citizenship and much less be registered to vote and show up to vote. I know some of them are and do, but I think, you know, given the fact that we haven't been able to move on that issue of immigration, I'm sure, you know, given the fact that it's a less expensive housing, you know, we move there. We usually, that's where we go. As Latinos, as Hispanics, we work in services and restaurants, you know. You go to restaurants, you go to hotels, you go to all of those kinds of services. You know, it might be an Italian restaurant or a Vietnamese restaurant. All you have is Hispanics out there in the back, in the kitchen, doing the food, supposedly the Italian and the Asian food. So, I mean, we are there. We are in the services sector. I think we need. This is a community that we need to have. We need to increase the level of education among our kids, among our community. And I know we have a problem with gangs and some of that stuff where a lot of youth, and that's one of the problems that we are trying to address while we are there. One of the things, that I am proposing myself that maybe, it sounds like I am, where is this coming from? But I'm saying I think it's time for Seattle to have 2 years of community college free to students. And, some people say, well, how are you going to pay for it? And obviously it's not going to be free. It's going to be free for me as a student. I don't have to mess with this and that, but probably we still need to look for grants. We need to still apply for Pell Grants, and the Pell Grant is going to come directly to the college. I probably sign some paperwork, etc., and things will be paid there. But I think it's time that we see that in Seattle. You have a discussion around the country. You have a discussion in Charlotte about that. We need to make it happen. I have been in higher education for at least 10 years. I have taught at the college level. So I'm pretty sure that that things are at a level that could happen. I'm sure that alone would increase the high school graduation. Kids knowing I'm going to be able to go at least for 2 years. College attendance will increase. If I'm a business owner, one of the big guys here, Microsoft, whatever, they have a labor pool right there. And I would want the community college to include them as part of the people that would plan the curriculum. This is what we need. This is the kind of training that we need in these kids after 2 years. That's what we need, so you can bring them to us. Make them part of their curriculum and obviously make a financial contribution.
Well, speaking of finances and paying for things,
yeah.
The one question we've asked each candidate so far is, are you going to vote for the transportation levy?
Am I going to vote for the transportation levy? I'm sure I will. Yes, I'm pretty sure I'm going to vote for the transportation levy. I mean, obviously, this is one of those things, along with Bertha out there in the tunnel stuck, that, what bothers me on that is that do we have a strategy that where this, this increase in taxes, this amount of money, is sort of taking us towards that end strategy that we had to solve this problem, and I guess that's what it bothers me. If that's part of a long-term strategy, and I'm not sure that I can see that as that's really part of that. So, I mean, in my things that I write, I mean, I'm saying, we need some road expansions, and that are going to enhance the transportation part of it. We need to look at the bus system, maybe certain parts of the day when people are going in, coming out of work, you need to have probably more buses out there running than in the other parts of the day, and I'm sure they are thinking about that and they are doing it. We need some of that light rail needs to happen. So I think what we lack is it's a good long-term strategy where all of these things, I mean, now the legislature is talking about, for the first time, the governor was talking about, first time we have a transportation bill. He signed it into law. It's a good thing. It's a great thing. It's needed. It's been needed for a long time. I mean, unfortunately, the federal, government is not coming along with that. But I think we need to make this to be part of that long-term strategy that we have to solve that kind of a problem. And that is what it bothers me, that if we're looking at it in itself, an end in itself, I am not, especially when you're asking taxpayers to foot the bill for that.
So you mentioned that you've taught, and you mentioned you work in social services. Can you tell us a little bit more just about yourself and, and what you do and your background?
All right. I was born and raised in Mexico. up to the age of 25. I went to school there. I moved to the States. I was about 25 when I came to the States. I had to learn English. I took English while I went to high school, but, pretty much like your Spanish, uno, dos, tres, buenos dias, that kind of thing. I came to New York City, and I thought I knew enough to, where's the bathroom, where is the hotel. And when I got to New York City, I couldn't hear anything. I couldn't understand anything that they would say to me. And then I couldn't say it, like somebody cut my tongue. So my final destination was Chicago. So I went. I say, this is for the birds. I'm not understanding anything. I think I'm gonna keep going. So I went on to Chicago. I lived in Chicago, Illinois for a number of years. Then moved to the more farther south to the Midwest, Kansas, Nebraska. I've been in those places. I did my graduate work while I was working at Wichita State University in Wichita, Kansas. I did my, master in public administration while I was there. Later on, I taught some classes, and I was stuck in Nebraska. I went up to Nebraska for a job to be the executive director of a Latino, which they call the Chicano Awareness Center. That's a 1970s term, definitely. But I was there for 3 or 4 years, and politics didn't go as well. I had moved from Kansas City at that time, and I really love Kansas City. Kansas City, I think, is a great, great city. And my daughter had moved to Seattle, and she started telling me, it's great. I love it here. You ought to move out here. So, well, I probably need a job or something. So, okay, we're going to send you some job applications, et cetera. So, make a long story short, I applied for a job. They gave me an interview, offered me a job, and I said, well, I'm coming. So, I cannot claim to be a long-term resident of Seattle, but I have lived in West Seattle since I got here. Okay, in 2011 is when I got here. But I feel I have been in government. I worked with the city manager in Wichita, Kansas for a year in the city. I rotated to the typical departments: public works, water and sewer, finance, personnel. So I am familiar with local government. This is a much larger city than Wichita, Wichita, Kansas, obviously. But I think I know the basics, and I know the process, and I think, mostly being in social services most of my life, providing for services for some people that haven't been able to, make it. It's the same kind of mission that I think that I would continue doing there, and working with the people and have the interest of people. I work with an agency too that we're doing a lot of services, and I see that we have, a potential within us that we really haven't been able to bring about. So, mental health services, substance abuse type of services, domestic violence type of issues. Those are some of the things that we deal with my agency. So that's kind of my background. As you can tell, I speak with an accent, so I still haven't gotten rid of the accent. And, at one time I was thinking about taking an accent reduction class, and I have actually bought the book. And, at the last minute I said, well, why would I want to take this class? This is me. This is what makes me not being able to pronounce too well some words at times. So forget that. I'm going to keep my accent. I'm going to stay as it is and keep going.
Got it. The since you have background in, you mentioned the governments that you worked in, and you also mentioned earlier about wanting to see creative solutions to a lot of the problems that you've mentioned. Are there any particular policies or or ways of doing things that you would want to pursue if elected?
Well, one of the things that I did when we were with the city of Wichita was we had just completed our public administration program, and we were working with the city, so they wanted us to, they would put us in different departments. We want you to look at the operations and write us some recommendations, paper, etc. What would you improve in Parks and Recreation, the different units, different departments? I think, and I have to admit that I am not aware as to what level some kind of a performance type of measures local government uses, but I think, you can get into even performance-based budgeting as you go through the different departments, and the different departments begin to build their budgets for the following year. That's probably the one of the best approaches to get there. You can, I think at one time when Mr. Carter was president, came from Georgia, I think he used that zero-based budgeting as well. So there's a number of approaches in the budgeting process that I think you can take advantage of, performance-based as well, and others that you can begin to bring. How efficient are we doing? In terms of the parks and recreation, I think Seattle has put a lot of money. It's a wonderful system of parks, and people want them, like them, and want even more. But let's look, how efficient are we being there? I mean, just like my center over there in South Park, I mean, they didn't open until 1. I don't know, maybe they open until 1 so they can stay open until 9, 10 o'clock, possibly. So, in that sense, okay, I might agree with them to do that. But I really think that those are some of the things that we can look at. How efficient is government being, And I don't believe in those approaches, which is mainly a conservative approach that we want to a smaller government, we want to starve government, we want, what they don't tell us is we want to take it from you and we want to give it to the corporations. That'll be our government. That is our government. I think we're almost there, at least in some parts of the country. But I think there is much that can be done, and I think the budgeting time is the time to look at the different functions of the city. I think sometimes we try to make the city a social service agency, and it needs to be in some cases, especially if it has the resources to do it. I think we need to take that responsibility, but I think we should never forget, the basic functions, keeping up the street, the roads, law enforcement, fire, those kinds of basic things, water treatment, and in this case, lighting, those kinds of utilities, garbage pickup and those kinds of things. We still need to do those things, and we need to do them well. In addition to that, I mean, I think we have the wonderful fortune that we are in a growing city. And, we are expecting maybe the big tankers to start coming up to the port. And, we don't like it. It's going to create more traffic, more pollution, et cetera, et cetera. But I bet you there are some cities around the country, and I have a special relationship with Chicago because I live sometime there, and I have a daughter that works there. They just graduated from medical school and is doing her residency there in one of the hospitals. Chicago would love to have that kind of challenge where, we got all this development, but what are we going to do with it? How are we going to control it? I mean, I think, you need to find a balanced approach to those things, Microsoft, Amazon is great. They're here. But if at some point things don't work out, for whatever reason, we already heard that some of the layoffs, almost 8,000 people going out of work, they're going to go, it's a business decision. The board is going to be there regardless of what we do. It's a resource that we have that is not going anywhere. And I think we need to work on that. We just need to make sure that we put some things in place that make sure that we safeguard our other assets, a clean water, clean environment, those kinds of things. But I don't think we need to say no to businesses because, it's fine, but I think that means jobs for some people that need a job. That means more income. That means more sales for some of our retailers. I can go on and think in terms of the city and how the city really could be in terms of some of the services, some of the works that they need, how they could actually promote a small business development. We did this believe it or not, in Omaha, Nebraska, which is, a little blue spot among a red state. And you got together the school district, the community college, the university, and the city going together in asking for smaller businesses or want to be businesses to put their bids out, and providing some assistance. We like you to bid for this, and this is what we have available. We need a parking lot out here. We need some sidewalks on such and such street. We would like to hear your, job below to apply for it. Okay, we got some people that can work with him, how to put the bid together, and how to take care of the business part of it. You're going to need some different kind of accounting. You're going to need maybe more equipment. We need to get you to get to that point. And we have some minority businesses, one Hispanic that really grew, one African-American business that really took off and became some very large businesses out of this kind of a small efforts from the city, from the local government there. So I think government here has said employers that come here, we like you to hire locally and that kind of thing. That's great. But I think more than that, what can we do to develop some businesses locally,
So we're kind of coming up to time. So we've asked, the last question is the same question we've asked all the candidates. You're out campaigning. You meet somebody. And that person says, well, I'm going to vote for, and they name one of your opponents. How do you respond? What do you say? Well, I respect that, but let me just tell you this about myself. What is that little thing you're going to tell them?
I think that little thing that I'm going to tell them is that I believe that we need to have some change. I think we need to have some change in city government, not only have a government that hopefully is more representative of us, of the people. And I know it's going to be difficult, let's say you are the person, I'm committed, I'm sorry, I cannot vote for you. And eventually you have to accept the fact if that's, if you're really pretty well set on my other opponent that you're going to work for, eventually I have to admit it, that's fine, but if you change your mind, please, consider me. But I think what I offer, I think what we can offer is more creativity. We want to see a change in government. We should want to see a less dependence on property taxes and be able to look at other alternatives other than property taxes. I think someone like me, I am fully aware. I have worked in Senior Citizen Center. I think one of my first jobs as director of an agency, it was Senior Citizen Centers, where we work with senior citizens. And I remember one time finding the senior citizen, it was Latino, Hispanic, He was getting railroad retirement, Social Security, had a big house, but the family put him in the back shed where he didn't have a bathroom. They just gave him a bucket there. He really didn't have anything, and even the floor was dirt floor. But they put him to live there. We're managing his resources, we're managing his money, and we're some family, relatives. And the person was pretty much legally blind, couldn't see, have to, by touch, have to find his things in there. Obviously, this was even a dangerous thing for us to go in there and somehow let government know what was going on. And this family take away this funds. I think it was a niece with a boyfriend and her family living there. And the poor guy was being neglected, left out there. Those are the kinds of things that I think made us what we are now. I will frankly tell you, at one time in my life, I did all of my education in Mexico in a seminary. So, we wanted to save souls. At this point, we want to save the bodies, we want to save the people. So, this is probably where my inclination to social services comes. And it's been a long time, lifetime commitment, and I think it will continue.
Thank you.